Right, lads, I'm going to take you through every single one of the achievements from medium upwards in difficulty, because everything else is either don't even bother or unenjoyable. And I'd like to start by saying this is my opinion. This is late opinion, meaning that it is definitive, and if you argue, you're just wrong. But I'm not unreasonable. How can you take me seriously like this? There we go. Now you can 100% trust exactly what I'm saying at all times. Right, so without further ado, let's get started with this one. So for this one, you have to be a Coptic nation, have all 5 blessings, and we're starting off with a meh. I don't know what else to say about that. It's just not that interesting. Coptic as a faith, really one of the underpowered ones, and it's just, you just sort of conquer 5 provinces and convert them. Academical though, that is actually fun. I have a bias towards nations that have a bit of a harder start and get going, and that have like a condition beyond just conquer everything. And so I do recommend that you try this one out, following on from things that are just basically a byproduct, should we say, of just getting stronger. A decent reserve, I think it's like have 1 million manpower. I guess it's meh. You don't really care about it too much, in my opinion. It's just something that happens versus it being an aim. It's one of those achievements that you look at it and you go, oh, nice. AIOU. This might split a couple of people, because you might say, well, it's just going down a mission tree. But I would say if you really get into the roleplay element of it, then going down a mission tree, so specifically this is to complete all of Austrian missions, I think it's quite fun. I think, again, I might have a bias here, but role-playing it and you've got clear aims and it's sort of step by step, I think that's quite enjoyable. But if you don't like the Austrian mission tree, then no, you're going to hate this. Fine Goose Step. Nah, it's Prussia and discipline, really. Nothing too much of a big deal. I feel like we're going to have a lot of meths in this. If I can get like a nice pyramid going, that would be ideal. I'm actually upset about how many of these achievements I know by just looking at the icons. This is African power. I believe you have to own the entirety of Africa as Congo. I would say it's a decent time. Again, any achievement that forces you to play as a starting nation that is interesting. So here's the thing. There are 2 types of achievements, in my opinion. There's ones that you can start as any nation and ones that you can start as every nation. I feel like the ones that you have to start as a specific nation are just inherently more interesting. So I'm always going to have a bias. And speaking of, so like that's this one, you have to form Rom as Caraman. That's actually fun. Or go play it. It's we'll put an S tier for now. I think that it is a really fun achievement. Definitely, if you haven't got this achievement, pick it up. It's fun. It's you have to fight the Ottomans early. You ally the Mamluks. It's not too tricky. It's not a grind, and you're not like sat there waiting for a while. Once you've got the achievement, you're not just sitting there thinking, okay, I have to grind out and maximize this, amount of ducats. It's just form the nation, get in, get out. Brilliant. Actually fun. Albania is a lesser played nation. The start is really fun because you just stack wiping Ottoman armies if you do it right. It is tricky. If you're a new player, you'll probably find this very difficult. But Skanderbeg, really fun. Roleplay, really fun. 5-star general, really 5-star general? 3-star general, really fun. It's like a 5-5-5, I think. Moving on. This one, I have to look up. Of course, this is the trade one. All right, so for this one, you have to have the highest trade power in Genoa, Venice, and English Channel whilst having an income of at least 300 ducats per month. I'm going to go for decent time. I haven't attempted this, but the fact that you've got 3 different trade nodes, you can play a trade game, you don't have to specifically do it conquest-based. Yeah, I think it's fun. You've got that ducat limit, which means you can't just conquer everything. You have to actually achieve the amount of trade required. I would say that's decent. More interesting to me, though, is this one, Manchurian Candidate. So for this, you got to start as one of the Jurchen tribes. That's like in the northeast of Asia. And you have to form Qing. This is a lot of fun. If you haven't played as the sort of the Manchu and that sort of thing, then definitely try it out. Forming Qing, I don't like the Mandate of Heaven personally. Actually playing as and with the Mandate of Heaven. But the precursor fighting, again, any achievement that has you fighting a larger power and massacring with their troops is just always going to be a lot of fun. I like it when the odds are stacked against you, as you might have been able to tell from my videos. But this is, yeah, definitely a lot of fun. Definitely on par with, I would say it's probably more fun than the Caraman one. So I'm just going to put it there just as a reminder for myself. Form in Germany, a decent time. It's not too difficult of an achievement. You can either go slow, you can go fast if you want a bit more of a challenge. You get a load of claims from missions. There is a mission tree and you have like a clear aim in sight. It's okay. Anglophile. I would say the British missions are less fun than Austrian missions. And so for the same reasons, I'm not going to rehash them. I'm just going to put it a little bit lower. We have a lot of achievements to get through, boys. Having said that, An unlikely candidate, starting as one of the Tunisian miners, you have to form Andalusia. That is a lot of fun. If you've never formed Andalusia before as one of the North Africans, that itself is a fun campaign. And so when you crank up the difficulty a little bit more, it's not too much to handle. A lot of people say that Mazab is one of the hardest starts in the game. I disagree. You can also couple this achievement with the Third Way achievement, which we'll probably come down to at some point. But yeah, I think definitely on par with these three and more fun than Academical. Is that more fun than Albania or Iberia? Probably. I'm so indecisive. This is not going to go well. Right, Arabian coffee. It's a bit of a grind. Yeah, it's a pun. Right, Arabian coffee. No, not up there. It's a bit of a grind, which is funny considering that it's coffee. I really hope I've edited that because that's the second time I've attempted that joke. And if I don't edit this video, I'm going to look like an idiot. Yeah, Arabia is not that interesting to form. You can start as the Mamluks and do it quite easily. So really not great. Right, now we get one of the interesting ones. I think that this sort of... So let me explain let me vocalize my thoughts properly. I like the shift that Paradox had from the achievements back in the day when I first started playing. They were more like, for example, as Najd, conquer 500 Sunni provinces, or conquer this amount of provinces, or conquer this region as this country. This represented a shift whereby this specific achievement, you have to hold a bunch of territories around the world like San Francisco, Bombay, and this sort of stuff within 80 years as a custom nation. I like the achievements that have time constraints. I think that they promote a more active playstyle and are inherently more fun. And if you haven't played as a custom nation in EU4 because you don't like historical, I typically don't play as a custom nation in EU4, obviously, unless it's for a video. The main reason for that is that if I'm going for an achievement, usually custom nations aren't allowed. So when there's an achievement that's specifically for custom nations, and there's a couple of them in here, it makes it inherently more interesting. You get the pre-game sort of trying to design your nation kind of aspect of it, and I think that's quite enjoyable itself. So that's why it's actually fun. I've not put anything in unenjoyable, don't even bother yet. This is... Oh god, this is gonna look bad for me. Alright, this is the Sun God one, I believe. I could be horribly wrong on some of these that I don't check, but I think you have to own something as Inca. Yeah, okay, so I've double checked to make sure I'm right. Form Inca, embrace all institutions, and own all South America as core provinces. It's not up there. Bit of a grind. South America is less interesting than North America just because it's less populated. The initial game of sort of Cusco forming Inca, is quite fun. Beyond that, it might even be unenjoyable, to be honest. Embrace all institutions. Yeah, it's kind of either don't even bother or unenjoyable because it's tied to, and you'll find my bias here, it's tied to waiting for things to happen. You have to wait for all the institutions to happen. So you can conquer all of South America and have that prerequisite done, but if you've not got all the institutions, you just have to wait for them to spawn in. I have this one twice. Because of how short it is, I'm going to put this one here. This, you have to either, as Bahmanis, own Vijayanagara's capital, or as Vijayanagar own Bahmanis' capital. It's quite an easy little achievement. You can probably do it in one war. It's just a decent time. It's a fun little knock. Yeah, it's decent. Okay, so this is one of the newer ones. It's a Twix Legacy. I'm including it in this group because it's not been classified as difficulty, so I thought it will enter into the medium upwards category, I think, in my opinion. You have to own 10 personal unions at the same time. Meh. I mean, there's a couple of nations like Provence or Austria that gives you personal unions over a couple of different nations to get you started. And from there, you just need to try and play the personal union game, which is fun as a part of a larger campaign, not fun on its own. So it's either a bit of a grind, maybe? I might adjust that one later, but that's definitely not a great one. Order lines reverse. So as Scotland, you have to vassalize or have France as a vassal. This is actually fun, or just go play it. Scotland is a really, really fun nation, especially with the updates that happened in Ireland a while back. Oh God, I'm really showing how long I've been playing E4, and I'm still not great at it, so this is really exposing myself. It's not too difficult. It can be meh if France isn't powerful. If France is quite strong, it's actually fun because you have to defeat England, which is already a great start. I might put it up here. Just go play it. Because you have to defeat England, which is tricky, but doable, considering you just wait for the tech advantage. You've got early conquests in Ireland, which are quite fun. And Yeah, and then you've got that war against France. So you've got those 3 sort of stages. So I would definitely put that up there. Australia, Hungary. Again, newer achievement. You start as an Australian tribe, unite Austria, and subjugate Hungary. I've never attempted this, so I'm going to have to purely guess. It would be a bit meh, because Australia itself, initial game could be quite fun, but then you've just got to sort of slowly make your way to Europe. Achievements aren't fun if they're a foregone conclusion, if that makes sense. That's what takes it from meh to being a bit of a grind. That's why this lot up here are enjoyable, because they have a clear end date, if that makes sense. Whereas something like a decent reserve, it's just a time thing, or same thing with Coptic Blessing. Speaking of, that's why I'm going to put the Avar Kargonate. I can't remember what the actual achievement's called, but basically you start as a Varia and you have to become an empire. Quite hard start initially, quite fun, and then at that point it's just a bit of a grind. It's sort of meh. I would say it's a decent time because the start is quite fun and the color's nice. Not really too much to say about that. Back in Control, I think, is the official. I'm gonna check the official name for this one. It is actually Back in Control. Form Yuan and be the only nation holding land in China. Yeah, it's a decent time. It's fun. Forming Yuan is a fun little aim to go for. Foregone conclusion after you sort of defeated China a couple of times, but it's a decent time. Back to the Piast. I hate how I know most of these by name. So as Mazovia or Silesia formed the nation of Poland. This achievement was put in when Silesia was actually a nation, versus it being a Pole and Glogau that could form Silesia. But it's a bit meh. You get your independence or from either one. If you start as Mazovia, you can quite easily get your independence and then you just form Poland. Not that interesting. It's not quite a bit of a grind. It's just a bit meh. Baltic Crusader. I'm going to go a decent time. Tom actually just completed this over on Twitch, so congratulations to Tom. I would say it's a decent time because whilst you can argue it's a bit of a grind after you've defeated Muscovy a couple of times, you still have the conversion aspect of it, and you can definitely do a little bit of roleplay with it, so I'm going to call it a decent time. This one's either meh or a bit of a grind. So this is Barbarossa. I got this achievement way back as a glitch. I've never actually completed it. I think you have to have 500 ships privateering at the same time. You just have to have 500. It's nothing too big. Again, I got this on a glitch of the system. Not that interesting. So we'll move straight on to Basilius, which is actually fun. Again, you got a clear end date. You've got the roleplay side of things. If you've got the Purple Phoenix DLC, you got a lot of flavor in there. A hard start, but not an impossible one. I would say Byzantium is sort of overhyped as being this ridiculously hard start. I would say Granada, Manipur, those are the starts that are a lot harder than Byzantium. I've actually done Byzantium on speed 5 without pausing, so if I can do that, and I'm not the most skilled player at this game, I'm sure that most people could do Basilius. But like I said, you've got that sort of it's not, a lot of people think that you have to reconquer and form Rome. You don't need to do that. It's just sort of holding the territories around the Black Sea. And yeah, it's a decent time that doesn't drag on for too long. Similarly, starting as Navarra, you have to convert the entire Iberian region to Basque by a certain time. Let me check what that certain time is. Yeah, before the age of absolutism. So I like this because Navarra is an interesting start. It's fun as a start. And you also do have to do the whole cultural conversion thing. And you've got to bear that in the back of your mind. It's not a grind to do that, in my opinion. You can take ideas, again, fully roleplay it. And the fact that you have this sort of fun start makes it an interesting one. God, we are whizzing through this. I'm actually quite impressed with the speed I'm going through. Okay, this is, I can't remember what it's called, but Tiger of Bengal or something? You start as Bengal and you conquer Samarkand. Start as Bengal, own Samarkand as a core province. Yeah, so you just sort of, it might be a bit of a grind. You just sort of start as Bengal and then you just march westwards. It's not a particularly difficult start, probably one of the easiest starts in India. You start with one of the best trade nodes in the world at the game start, in my opinion. And yeah, you just sort of march onwards, especially if the timbers have collapsed and it's all fractured. You don't really have an end boss. So it's probably a bit of a grind. I wouldn't quite call it unenjoyable. The next one's Napoleon's Ambition. Let me make sure I've got the conditions right. But as revolutionary as France, spread the revolution to 10 countries. So this is awkward. Turns out I mixed up Napoleon's Ambition and the one where you spread the revolution. So why don't we just, as a collective, pretend that I got it right, and I'm talking about the achievement where you have to spread the revolution, not Napoleon's Ambition. Meh, there's not really much to say about that. The fact you have to wait until the revolutionary time period, and getting the revolutions is a bit, you know, no one's starting. No one's ever going to start that isn't in 1444, realistically. So you'd have to play the entire game, wait to get the target, the revolution, then do it. So it's actually probably even unenjoyable because it's not that difficult once you've got it. Big blue blob. I'm going to put this in a decent time. It's a bit too frustrating to be actually fun, in my opinion. But some people really enjoy the grind. I am not one of those people. I enjoy the sort of rapid fire conquest of it. And there are definitely a lot of tutorials. I think Icepire did a really good setup for Big Blue Blob. But I wouldn't say it's particularly fun. That's all I have to say about that, really. A lot of people are just going to say, well, you find it difficult. And yes, that is the case. This is an opinion based on whether I find things enjoyable or not. I don't want you to tell me. I don't know what you want me to say about that. Bleed them dry, I think that is. Have 10 different nations. Oh, don't even bother. That's the first don't even bother. Have 10 different nations paying war reparations to you. It's no flavor. Nothing interesting about that. Don't even bother it. Like, there's no point. The next one, breaking the yoke as Ryazan own Saratov, Crimea, and Kazan whilst being independent. I would say it's actually fun. Ryazan is a criminally underplayed nation. I think it has one of the most interesting starts in EU4. I'm surprised I've never done a video on it. But you're surrounded by larger powers. You have to play it a bit smart. A little bit of like flavor in there. Yeah, I think definitely a good. I would say it's a good start if you are comfortable with sort of forming Germany. You've played EU4 a little bit, and you want a bit of a challenge, but you don't want something that's going to steamroll you. Then yeah, this is definitely a good achievement to do. I think it's like a livestock achievement. I can't remember this one. As Hamburg traded both gems and livestock. I don't care. There's nothing compelling about that in my opinion. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of reason for it. But no, not interesting. Now this, maybe for personal reasons. So this is the Carthago Delenda Est achievement. Basically, as an Italian culture nation, make sure the entire Tunis area is at least 100 devastation. Probably just say unenjoyable. It's not really quite, I mean, maybe don't even bother. Well, it's not don't even bother because you'd have to be aiming to do this. But again, once you defeated Tunis in a war, you just sort of sit on their provinces and loot them. That's it. There's nothing too compelling about that, in my opinion. Right, cherry picking. You need to just take a 3-star general from one of your daimyos. That's awful. You just need to wait for one of them to spawn a 3-star general and then take it. You're not doing anything. It's just random luck the entire time. All right, chosen one. As Korea, own or have a subject own all Shinto, Confucian, and Buddhist provinces in the world. That might sound like a grind. I'm going to put it up here in actually fun for the simple fact that Korea is one of the most interesting nations in EU4. I don't see anyone playing it. I don't see anyone talking about it. But they have a custom mission tree, an interesting mission tree that you can engage with that's more than just conquer this thing, do that thing. For example, off the top of my head, you need to have all provinces in a certain area above a certain amount of development to stop a potential disaster from happening. You can do a lot of things with your navy, which is weird. I know that I'm talking about navies being fun, but for example, if you attack Japan, you can be quite clever in using your navy to do amphibious landings and then control certain islands to tick up war score and sort of piecemeal chip away at Japan. You have the Ming as your big bad guy, and then after that, you steamroll a little bit. But initially, I would say just because Korea is an interesting start, it's a lot of fun. So I might put that up here just because it's a nice long-term aim that is a bit grindy, so maybe not quite on the level of this slot, but I would say it is more fun than, for example, Basilius, again, just because Korea is a really great nation to play as. Consul of the Sea, I believe this one's called. Yeah, as Aragon, conquer all Mediterranean centers of trade. Aragon, it's a decent time, but not because of the achievement, just because Aragon is an underplayed nation that has, again, custom mission tree and is quite fun. Own all Mediterranean sense of trade, clear aim, shouldn't take you too long. It's not going to be too much of a drag. So a decent time. More fun than Big Blue Blob. Probably, I'm going to drop down the Anglophile one down to here and the Austrian missions down to here. Just having a look at that, because that's not as fun as the others. All right, Corfu. Corfu is basically you have to force a nation to revoke 5 cores as Corfu. It's nice and short. Corfu is not a nation that most people will ever play as. You can do some interesting strategies with Corfu, like trying to trap your enemy on Corfu itself with having superior navy, which is one of my favorite things to do in EU4 because it's so satisfying when you fight an army, they try and retreat across the strait, you bring your navy out, and suddenly it's an instant stack wipe. Doesn't matter how many troops are there. So that's always fun. And like I said, I'm always going to be biased towards achievements that force you to play as obscure or lesser known or lesser played nations. So that'll be it. This is Cotton Candy. As Candy be production leader in Cotton. That's a grind, but just because it's going to be meh just because of it forces you to play as Candy, which again, obscure, almost irrelevant nation. Dar al-Islam, unify Islam. You could do that as the Ottomans quite easily. So probably a bit of a grind, really. Once you're at the point where you know it's going to happen, it's just sort of, this is one of these achievements. It might be unenjoyable. It's one of those achievements that you'd get whilst getting another achievement. For example, the Sultanate of Rum, because it just involves owning a bunch of territory, really. And it's also locked behind a DLC. So there's that. At least I think it is. I could just be completely wrong here. There we go. Definitely the Sultanate of Rum is what it's called. I apologize. I do not deserve to wear the E4 jumper because I got one name wrong. I'm sure someone's really upset about that. You have to own and have cores on Rome, Moscow, and Istanbul as the Ottomans or Rum. I think if you do it as Rum, it'll be a decent time. If you do it as the Ottomans, bit of a grind. Once you're at the point where you can fight Muscovy comfortably, or even if you're a decent player, you should never be under threat as the Ottomans, ever. So it's then just a bit of a grind to take the right provinces. Don't be silly. That's the name of the achievement. I'm just not just yelling at you. I find this actually fun just because I enjoy the idea that the entire achievement is predicated on this idea that you should not be the nation that you are. That's the only thing to do is to not be silly. So you can form Croatia. It's quite nice and easy. Silly is a ridiculously underrated start. You can become the Holy Roman Emperor really, really easily, as I've proven in one of my videos, because of your insane diplomatic reputation, ideas, and so playing as like a one province minor HRE sort of game is quite interesting, but that's not the achievement. So I don't know why it's relevant. But Don't Be Silly is actually fun because, again, short and sweet. Not all of these have to be super long to be enjoyable. This one is Dovmont's own. Starting Pskov have 100 standing Streltsy units. Pskov, somewhat of an where's he gone? I put him somewhere. All right, somewhat of an interesting nation, but again, it's not that interesting of an aim to just sort of have 100 standing units, just conquer a bunch of things. Yeah, not great. This one, Dracula's Revenge, so much fun. You start as either Wallachia or Moldavia, and you just have to own the entirety of the Balkans after having formed Romania, I think. You can impale the Sultan. That's actually a quite highly viewed video on this channel, so I assume that if you're watching this, you've seen it. That's a lot of flavor, a lot of fun. You can roleplay as Dracula. Romania is a fun nation to attempt to form, and then you just, after a while, it might become a grind, but the Balkans is a small enough region that you're not in the sort of cycle of waiting for truce to end and then declaring another war. It's small enough that you can, again, get it done, and it's short and sweet. You're not dragging things out. So a lot of fun. Eat your greens. As Kale, I think it is. Yeah. Control all grasslands in Asia as Kale before the age of absolutism. I'm going to put this in a decent time. Because, again, you have a time constraint, which makes it a bit more of a rush, which, gets the blood pumping. I'm talking about EU4, getting my blood pumping. Questioning life decisions, but moving on of my tier list of achievements. I think that it's a difficult achievement. It's a ridiculously difficult one. And so if you're up for the challenge, it'll be a decent time. If you're not good at EU4, you're not going to get this achievement. It's as simple as that. Emperor of Hindustan. Starting Delhi, restore their empire's borders. Delhi has a tricky start, especially if you don't gimmick the game. So I'm going to put actually fun, despite the fact that I've just broken my rules about snowballing and conquering a region. Just because India is a fun region to conquer. And that might be my British ancestry speaking, but it just is. Delhi has a mission tree, which makes it fun. and there's enough going on. It's enough of a dynamic place that it's not a slog. One of the only regions in EU4 where it's not a slog just to completely conquer. So that's good. Empire of Man, as Man conquer all the islands of the world. I'm going to say actually fun, just because Man is a unique, interesting start. Bit of a grind after a while, but the idea that you have to conquer all the islands as an island nation, I find funny. I think that would sustain me through the grind, if that makes sense. And it's a little bit of a twist on just conquer everything. This one is even better than Piet Hien. Gain over 100 gold from privateering single fleet. That's... I mean... it was one of those things that, like, I'd probably put as don't even bother when I next find it. Yeah, it just happens if it happens. I wouldn't say specifically go for it. Everything's coming up Mulhouse. So you start as Mulhouse, become Emperor of the HRE, and completely decentralize the Empire. It's the only time you would ever decentralize the Empire. I'm gonna put it as meh. It's not particularly interesting. You're just going down the tree. It's not a grind because, again, you're doing something that you'll never do in the game and you never have done in the game. So there's something there. The next one is Fnatic Collectivist. Own all institution provinces. Don't even bother. It's just a pure conquest. No real point. Fine Financials is the exact same thing. Own a bunch of provinces. Now, this is interesting. First come, first serve. I would say it's actually fun. You have to completely own all provinces in North and South America as a custom nation that started there. Again, I'm biased towards starting as a custom nation because it's going to force you to play differently to how you would normally play. It does become a bit of a grind to own every single province, but again, if you've gone down the custom nation route, I think you can keep yourself entertained. I might drop it down to a decent time depending on how the rest of these plan out. All right, this one is the foremost servitor of Jagannath. Stars are certain, have subject own all tropical wood provinces. Meh, Harissa is an interesting enough start, but probably a bit of a grind, actually, because, again, you just have to go and conquer a bunch of provinces. I don't like achievements where it's like, go and conquer everything of this, go and conquer everything of that. It's a bit dull. Forever Golden, complete the Spanish mission tree. I'm going to put it the same as the English one. Nice for roleplay purposes, bit meh. Might be a decent time if you can really get into it, but meh, not for me. This is the 4 Odin achievement. Again, custom nation. I'm gonna put it up as good, just go for it. Because you have to start as a Norse custom nation, so it's the only time you'll ever play as Norse. No more than 200 points, so there's a bit of a cap on it. And you have to own and core Scandinavia and the British Isles, so you've got a clear, and converted Norse, so you've got a clear aim, doesn't last forever. You can play around with how you want to structure your custom nation. I would say just do it. Again, it'd be fun. Humble Origins, another custom nation one, I believe. It can be paired with other custom nation ones. Basically, if I recall, let me double check. Starting as a custom nation with no more than 50 points, have at least 2,000 total developments. I'm gonna put it in a decent time just because of the handicap initially. It's gonna play out slightly differently, but eventually it's gonna become a bit of a grind. So initially a decent time, then becomes a bit of a grind. So I think it's fair to put it in the middle there. Frozen assets. I think you just have to have the White Sea be the highest in the world. Start as Novgorod, control 90% of the trade power in the White Sea. Bit of a grind at the end, but Novgorod is a very difficult start and a lot of fun as a start. Very satisfying to pull off, but can be quite frustrating, so probably in meh. This is a Fugger banking as Augsburg. Subsidize 3 great powers, 20% of their income while having less than 20 provinces. This is going to be divisive. I'm going to say it's a decent time, despite the fact that I would hate this. I hate playing tall, but I would say that a lot of people would enjoy this aspect of trying to limit themselves to being 20 provinces and still maintaining that sort of high enough income to subsidize 3 great powers, 20% of their income. So I'm going to put it as a decent time. I think a lot of people enjoy it. I would hate it. This is Ganges Khan. Start as a tribal nation and become a step forward. Who cares? I think is the best way to describe that. Georgia on my mind. Fully owned 3 Georgias. Bit of a grind. You're just trying to go for these 3 different places. Nothing too much there. Global hegemony. Reach 100 strength. Unenjoyable. Again, you just once it's a foregone conclusion. Once it's a foregone conclusion, that's it. Golden Horn, as a Somali nation, fully own the Horn of Africa region and have a monthly income of at least 10 ducats. I would say a decent time. Again, short and sweet. You got to get your gold income up, which is quite easy. So you're just focusing on conquering that area. It doesn't necessarily need to be difficult to be enjoyable. It's just, again, a decent time. Another one to do with gold. So you start as heir and you have to have 50% of your income made through gold provinces and own 50 ducats per month as profit. I don't know what I can say about that beyond it's sort of similar to the Somali one, but probably just a little bit less interesting because you don't have you have a less specific aim in terms of conquest, I suppose. Tangentially related to gold. That's a great segue. Gold Rush. I would say go and do it. It's not too hard. You start as if you've never played as a horde before, this is perfect because you start as the Great Horde and you try and form the Golden Horde before 1500. It's just constant warfare, constant destruction of your nation. If you're not planning on continuing the save beyond 1500, you can just get it quite easily. I would say the challenge is trying to keep a stable nation throughout. But yeah, I think that's a lot of fun. Definitely one of my favorite achievements. Speaking of one of my favorite achievements, Good King Rene. This is great. So you start as Provence and you form the Kingdom of Jerusalem. There is a little bit of a time constraint insofar as you have to do it before the Age of Reformation ends. But Provence itself has a mission tree that a lot of people don't see. You get a load of personal unions over Hungary, Naples, Aragon. You start with the personal union over Lorraine, so you can probably combine that with another achievement that's less fun, like that, a Twix personal union one. But Provence is a criminally underplayed nation. It is easily one of my favorite nations in EU4, and definitely go and get this achievement. Because again, clear aim, going form in Jerusalem, you can definitely get into the roleplay of it. Speaking of the roleplay of it, Gothic Invasion, actually fun. I would say, again, it's another one of those that it is a foregone conclusion. For those of you who don't know, you need to start as Theodoro, conquer all Germanic culture provinces in Europe. So eventually it becomes a grind, but Theodoro is interesting enough to keep it going. The color is spectacular, if I might say so myself. And the start is quite tricky. So anywhere, I would say if you were to pick any nation in the sort of Black Sea and Caucasian region in EU4, they play very similarly, but it's still interesting. So you pick any nation in there, you're going to have a good time. Any nation in the Caucasus region. Because you've got a nice balance of defensible terrain, so you can fight larger enemies. A lot of large enemies to fight in the constant threat of the Ottomans or Timurids or Kargon if they are able to keep themselves together. As well as the Mamluks. So it keeps it interesting. This one's Great Moravia. Restore the Moravian borders as Nitro or Moravia. Forces you to play as a nation that you wouldn't usually do. Not too long, I suppose. So I would put it in actually fun. Maybe one of the weaker ones in actually fun. Because it's not got too much going on. But again, the length of time means it's decent. Right, as perm, own or have a subject own the Russian, Siberian, Scandinavian, Canadian, Hudson Bay, and Cascadian regions. Oh, this is a tricky one. I'm going to put it in a decent time. It's not quite actually fun just because, again, eventually you're going to get to a point, like is the failing point with most of these achievements, where it's a foregone conclusion. But perm is an interesting start, and you have to own specific regions that aren't just conquer this, conquer that. You have to get to those regions. So you have the initial, like sort of 2 stages. You have the initial break free, conquer Russia side of things, and then you have get to the US. So I think that'd be decent. That's not one I've tried. I've played as perm before, which was a lot of fun, but I've not taken it to that sort of conclusion. Guarantor of peace, guarantee the independence of France, Ottomans, and Russia. I just think that's just uninteresting to me. There's no flavor there. There's nothing specific. You can play as any nation. There. Hessian mercenaries have at least 50 regiments of mercenaries and no loans as Hesse. It's either a bit of a grind or meh. Probably a bit of a grind because again, nothing specific. It's just play as Hesse, get big, get rich, have mercenaries. So that was probably trickier back in the day, I would say. With mercenary companies nowadays, probably a lot easier because you just sort of get a big pile of cash and then dump it all at once. So, whatever. All right, this one. As a fetishist nation, have 13 available cults. I'm probably going to say this is enjoyable. There's something weirdly fun and satisfying about, as a fetishist nation, every time you encounter a new faith, you unlock a cult. And you get a little bit of flavor text with it. And so that would keep me interested and has kept me interested whilst playing as a fetishist nation. Despite the fact that I've done it several times and I know probably what the flavor is off by heart. But it's incremental, it's interesting, and you're not necessarily conquering things, you're just trying to discover new things, I would say. So that's interesting enough for me. So this is Holy Trinity. As the papacy own Jerusalem, have the Livonian Order, Teutonic Order, and the Knights Marches. I'm going to say actually fun, just because the Pope is uniquely fun to play, and I've sort of spoiled what I'm going to be rating the Pope as in terms of the Kingdom of God achievement later. But yeah, it's a fun achievement, specific aims, not just pure conquest. So I think that's interesting to say the least. Speaking of, in a weirdly similar vein, home and away, Wales is a nation that you will never play as. You start as them, and you have the initial challenge of dealing with England, and then you own a bunch of European capitals. I think specifically Rome, Madrid, Paris, and London. And those are all difficult places to get to. You can cherry pick them and sort of just snipe the provinces themselves. But the start makes it actually fun, so I would say definitely go and do that. Ideas Guy is the next one. So you start as a custom nation with the full 800 points, but no more than 3 total development, and you have a bunch of, I think it's 500 monthly, let's check. 500 monthly income of ducats. I'm going to say don't even bother, which might sound weird given my penchant for achievements with custom nations, but the reason I'm saying that is you could combine this with any of the other custom nation achievements. If you start as any of these nations, you fulfill this criteria, provided you have less than 3 total development. So it's sort of not even worth doing. Right, I don't like sand. Have the most development whilst owning no provinces with terrain other than desert or coastal desert. I'm going to say that is actually fun because it's an interesting restriction. It's not just be big. You have to do it whilst limiting yourself versus, for example, something like this, which I would say don't even bother, which is own 1,000 provinces. There's no real interesting flavor there. But something like don't like sand, I enjoy it because you're having to stick to your coastal desert and desert stuff whilst also trying to aspire to quite a lofty ambition. This one, I'll graze my horse here and here. As a horde, own over 200 provinces producing grain. Nah. Hordes are just fun, which is why it carries it from being a bit of a grind. Hordes are amazingly fun. But again, you're just owning 200 provinces of a specific type, so not that interesting. So an industrial evolution. As Great Britain own all of England as core provinces. Obviously, that would be really easy. Don't know why that's a prerequisite. And have at least 25 development in each province there. It's all right. It's not conditioned to any sort of time, which is good, I suppose. So you can just sort of get on and do it. But I wouldn't say it's particularly interesting to just sort of develop a bunch of provinces without any sort of outside difficulty. Speaking of outside difficulty, this is an amazing achievement, in my opinion. This is Inner Turmoil. You have to start as the Isles and own 20 provinces by 1500s, none of which are on islands. So it's a 60-year achievement, which always plays to my strengths. I love the early game. And you can't own any islands. So you have to get on your starting... so you have to start as an interesting enough nation and then completely shift your geographical location, which is always fun to me. And it's sort of like a mad dash without being too tricky. So you don't have to think about it too hard. And it ends early. So that's nice. Form Italy. I'm gonna say a decent time. I would say it's more fun than Germany because Italy is a more interesting region. It slows the pace down a little bit because you're limited by development. Whereas in Germany, you're limited by aggressive expansion. Within the HRE. So each sort of incremental step you get closer to Italy, you get noticeably more powerful. If you've ever seen late game, any nation that is focused and concentrated in northern Italy is usually ridiculously powerful with level 8 forts, and it's awful to get through. So in that sort of a vein, this can be quite fun to do. It's all Greek to me. Form Greeks and have cores on Zeta, Theta, Lambda, and Rho. I appreciate myself being a student of ancient Greek for like 2 years. I appreciate the Greek alphabet. I don't know where I'm going with this. It's just an excuse to chuck it into actually fun. Forming Greece, I always like it when you have to form a nation that you wouldn't normally form. Greece itself has terrible ideas, and so you do need a reason to form it, but it's still fun. Je m'entendrai, as one of the Dutch minors, form the Netherlands. The Lowlands is a fun area to play in, and I think I've said all I need to say about having a specific aim. I don't think I need to repeat myself. Speaking of, this is unenjoyable. This has gotten easier over time. This is basically Jihad, so as Najd owned 500 Sunni provinces. I'll upgrade it to a bit of a grind just because Najd is an interesting start, but just own 500 provinces and convert them. You might ask, how's that different to Baltic Crusader? And to that I say... Keep the flame burning. As a Zoroastrian nation, own all religious centers and monument Baku Astega, which is the one that gives you 10% discipline on tier 3. That's fun. Just because, again, Zoroastrian, interesting religion, great monument. It's not just own these 3 provinces, it's own these 3 provinces and have a monument. So it's inherently better than a couple of the other ones down here. Now, the Khan achievement. This is classified as very hard by the EU4 wiki. It's not very hard if you play it how I played it and got the achievement, which is by forming the Mongol Empire through nefarious means. If you haven't watched that video, do go ahead and watch it. But otherwise, if you're going to do it properly, probably a decent time. Otherwise, if you can do it my way, I would even say it's unenjoyable. So this one formed the Kingdom of God. I would say do it. It's a little bit more fun than the Holy Trinity because probably more roleplay involved, and it's a little bit less, a little bit shorter, I suppose. But again, I like the short and sweet ones, as you can tell by the entire top row. The only exception to that being this one here. But there's a lot of flavor to it, a lot of custom missions, a lot of interesting custom missions, which is the key part, because some of the custom missions are really boring. They just conquer this, give you more claims, which can be fun to me, but I appreciate it's not fun for everyone else. And the papacy offers a different way to play the game because you're constantly mindful of it. So I just enjoy that. And then you have to combat the Reformation. So King of Jerusalem, form the Kingdom of Jerusalem as Cyprus of the Knights. It's a tricky start. You've got the whole Deus Vult aspect and roleplay aspect of it. It's a lot of fun. Need I say more? So this one is the Kinslayer achievement. So as one of the Russian miners, including Adoyev and Ryazan, you eliminate all other Rurikovich nations without changing your ruling dynasty. I would say that is somewhere in between. I wish I'd had more categories. Somewhere in between these two. Tricky start for all nations involved. I might do it as Belaruso. We'll see. Red Hawk. But you've got a specific aim. You can get a little bit lucky with it if the Rurikovich dynasty dies out, for example, in Muscovy, so you don't need to deal with them anymore. But I would say, yeah, it's decent enough. So this one is Kiristan, Japan. So basically, you just start as a Japanese daimyo and convert everyone to Christianity. What's the point? Is all I'll say about that. And we'll get a lot more of an interesting achievement of this one. So there's quite a few achievements surrounding the Knights, I've noticed. And this one specifically, you need to go to the New World. So Knights of the Caribbean. As the Knights, own the Caribbean and every island in the Mediterranean. You've got a weird way to play the game. You wouldn't usually play the Knights like that. So again, any achievement that forces you to play the game strangely, it's always going to be high on my list. And there's something really funny about just the Knights owning provinces in the Mediterranean and then just deciding, you know what, boys, let's go to somewhere else that is of a similar climate. So yeah, we'll check that in there. The Komnoi Empire, I'm going to put as actually fun. Bit of a grind at the end, but Trebizond is an interesting enough nation to start with. And I found out when I did my Trebizond video that there are a lot of weirdly passionate people about Trebizond. It's sort of not quite on the same level as the Byzantines, but it's probably a similar fervor. It's kind of, I suppose, people who are fond of the Byzantines, but when that's too mainstream, I want this one. And that's how to insult your audience 101. So moving swiftly on, we've got Cuban cigars. As Cuba, own Havana. It's okay. It's just more of a colonial game as Cuba. I think this achievement was made just because of Cuban cigars. That's why it's not that interesting to me. The Kushite Restoration as a Nubian culture nation own the entire Egyptian region as core provinces, and that's how you do the whole matrilineal game that I did. So it's a decent time just because it doesn't last for too long, which is weird to say, but it's not all that interesting, in my opinion. You've only got one enemy to fight, which I think is the core weakness in it. Laughingstock, own the provinces of Hihi and Lolland. There's no reason for it, apart from the names. Not really that interesting. Lazarus! Ah, it goes straight up there, my friend. I'll always have a soft spot for Serbia in this game. A few of you may know why. But as Serbia own the entire Balkans as core provinces, similar to Romania, the Balkans is not too hard of a region to control. It's short enough that it's fun to conquer. Serbia is a really, really fun nation. It's got its own ideas, missions, everything else. You've got the gold mine in Kosovo to fund your ridiculous conquests. Yeah, it's just great. Lessons of Hemistead, as this Martian own the provinces of Jarland, Holland, whilst Denmark do not exist. Yeah, it's all right. Nothing too special going on there. Own two provinces and kill a nation. But Dithmarschen is a unique nation. That's why it's actually fun instead of just a decent time. So this one, Lion of the North, as Sweden lead the Protestant League to victory against the Emperor. I'm going to say meh. Sweden is a decent time, and the whole Baltic stuff that they got going on is quite fun. But the fact you have to wait for the leagues to trigger makes it less fun, in my opinion. Just because, again, anything that is contingent on time constraints outside of your control is just going to get frustrating when you just have to speed 5 through things. Live long and prosper. Have 30 states with prosperity. At the same time, you have a 70-year-old ruler. Too many chance-related things. You just have to hope that your ruler survives. That's all it is. So moving on to a more interesting one, Luck of the Irish. Just go for it. You have, again, the multi-stage thing. You have Conquer Ireland, Conquer Scotland, Conquer England. So it's just a more tricky version of the Scotland campaign. You've got a couple of different Irish miners with interesting ideas, like Desmond, for example, who have some really, really quite good military ideas, and a custom mission tree, which is great. Lucky Lucka. As Lucka, own Luck now. It's just get big as... Probably a grind, actually. It's just get big as Lucka. There's nothing more to that. No real flavor in it, but it's there. Mansa Musa, one of the newer achievements. As Mali, give 10k ducats away to another great power without having a single owner being bankrupt. I would say it's a bit of a grind or even unenjoyable. You just sit there, gather your money, send it across. There's no... It means that any conquest that you do is just purely to pass the time and to get the enough of an economic base to send across the money. You can go anywhere and do anything. There's no specific direction, which I think is less fun. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this one's just Form Rome, which I'm going to put as a decent time. Might be strange given what I've been saying so far, but I think that it's enough of a roleplay aim that you can keep your head in the game to do it, provided you're not gaming the system and just sort of starting as the Ottomans. Weirdly enough, I would say Aragon is probably the most fun nation to do this with, because you can start off with the Consulate of the Sea, which is already quite fun, and then it's a natural progression from there. Once you have control of the Mediterranean, you sit there and think, well, why not Rome? Market control, be the trade leader of 7 different goods. Don't even bother. It'll happen if you conquer anything ever. There's a lot of these ideas that are going to be down here that I personally don't find enjoyable, that can all be put into one achievement run. For example, if you own 1,000 provinces, you're probably going to get this. You're probably going to get that. You're probably going to get the other. You're probably going to get the market control one. Mary of Lotharingia. Lotharingia and Burgundy being nation states that have cemented themselves in the Social Streamer's legacy as being my nemesis. Having said that, I will say that Burgundy and Lotharingia is easily one of the most fun campaigns in EU4. Having a female ruler named Mary, that can be the part which would drop it down to actually fun. Just because of how fun Burgundy and Lotharingia is to play, I'm going to keep them up there. But it would be super frustrating if you constantly had male heirs, which would easily drop this down to unenjoyable. Mass production. Starting Zadoyev own one of every manufactory. Zadoyev is an interesting start, but own one of every factory. You have to wait until you can build manufactories. Again, limited by time, therefore a bit less interesting to me. Master of India. Own and have quarters on all of India as a European nation. Probably a bit meh, because again, lack of a specific direction, which seems weird because it does say to conquer all of India. And India is one of the most interesting nations. It's high C tier, just because India is, like I said, a fun nation to try and conquer. Messina Porcelain as Saxony own all Chinaware provinces in the world. It's just a grind. Again, it's just, you start as a specific nation, which is better than nothing. Conquer X amount of things. Kind of boring to me. This next one is Mewar never changes. I really hope I'm editing this video. Complete the Mewar Trish mission tree. Trish and me. Oh, God, I've been sitting here for a very long time in front of the camera talking about achievements, lads. You're going to have to forgive me here. It's better than the Austrian mission tree, I would say. I might even have to drop down the English one to a bit of a grind, I don't know how comfortable. I'm going to put it in B tier, but it's high B tier because Mewar is an interesting nation to play as, India an interesting region, and the mission tree itself is, again, interesting. So, better than Austria one. So I'll just put them up here, just so we can remind ourselves. My armies are invincible, gain at least 7 land morale. Pointless, really. Where's the Prussian one? Where did I put him? Fine Goose Step's going to go down to a bit of a grind because it's not that fun. Napoleon's ambition as revolutionary France for the revolution to... I've already done that, I swear. I thought this was Napoleon's ambition. Oh, I've made a mistake early on and people were really upset at me. Of course, this is better than Napoleon, which is as France owned Vienna, Berlin, and Moscow as core provinces. Well, that's a bit better. Bit of a grind. Bit better than this one. That's unenjoyable. Because the time... I'm going to put it in meh. Because this one's because of the time constraints. Man, it's going to be embarrassing. Neither Holy nor German have 7 free cities in the Empire, none of which are Germanic culture. I might be biased here, but I just don't think I care about that, to be honest. Finally, we're going to get a decent achievement after what feels like a while. Never say never. As Never's the entire France region as core provinces, I'm going to actually put that up into low S tier, high A tier. Never's interesting start, specific aim. Conquer France doesn't last too long. Yeah, decent stuff. New Delhi. As Delhi have your capital in the Delhi province. Who cares? It's a similar thing where if you do this achievement, you're going to get this one either way. Like, if you just press the button. No pirates in my Caribbean. Own or have a subject on the entire Caribbean. It's not a grind, but it's just unenjoyable. Like, no one has ever opened up a game of EU4 and gone, oh boy, I can't wait to get the no pirates in my Caribbean achievement. It's just something that happens, you know? Norwegian wood. As Norway own... Oh, God. This is going to be controversial. I'm going to say grind, just because, again, you're owning all naval supply producing provinces in the world as Norway. There's nothing really more to it. I'm sure that was all the rage back in the day when I first started playing EU4, but nowadays there's a lot more interesting achievements. Not just pizza. Become a great power as Naples. It's going to be fun. Not hard, not tricky. You can coast it, you can develop it, you can conquer for it. It'd just be a fun little achievement to do. No trailer tiers. Own have cores on the 13 colonies as Cherokee with all institutions embraced. Similar to the Fnatic Collectivist. Natives aren't that fun to play anyway. So you're combining a boring campaign with an extended boring achievement. It's fun when the Europeans first turn up, admittedly. But after that, it sucks. And now we get to some controversial ones. Should I do these all at the same time? Okay. All of the world conquering ones are a grind. I do not think they're worth doing. I think that they're more of a test of how well you can meta the game versus anything else. And every time I've attempted a world conquest, the closest I've ever come to it being more... The closest I've ever come to it being interesting was Oirat, and just going balls crazy and just conquering everything in sight and trying to get a world conquest done by like early 1700s. But it's just not fun. All right, now we get another achievement that is one of the newer ones. As Sarahan have at least 9 loyal vassals with at least 100 development each. You're starting as an interesting nation, which you wouldn't play otherwise. It's somewhat of an interesting concept, I suppose, so a bit meh, but again, it's... you know what, we'll put it in a decent time. I haven't played as Sarahan, and I've not tried this achievement, so I won't judge too harshly here. So maybe it's a good one. On the roads again. Anything to do with the knights is fun. You get to raid initially. It's a difficult-ish start, but again, you've got a war chest. You can form Jerusalem. It's fun. So specifically what this achievement is, you have to own and core Constantinople, Jerusalem, and Antioch. You can form Jerusalem along the way. The knights are just fun. So do it. Pandya Empire. Starting as Madurai, conquer the Pandya territories. For those of you who don't know, that is sort of southeast India. Yeah, it's not too bad. A decent time. It's a clear aim. Interesting starting nation. Not too bad. I wouldn't say it's on par with any of these, but it's not itself bad. Assign a Pasha to Paris. Again, if you're doing any of the Ottoman Sultanate of Rum sort of things, you'll pick it up just by virtue of it being there. Again, no one's loading up a game of EU4 saying this is my express aim. It would be part of a cluster of achievements versus it being on its own. Philippine Targa, as Cebu recreate the Chola Empire. I say that's a little bit more interesting than this one, just because of the starting nation of Cebu. It is a little bit grindy, I suppose, but yeah, low A tier, high B tier. Pick your poison as Kaffa, develop in Kaffa while subject of yours owns it. High C, low B for that one. Not really too much to it. but it's a lot better than this. This is Poland can into space where you just have to reach max tech in all categories. You could sit there as Poland and do nothing all game and get this achievement. And so that is horrible. Prester John, own and have cores on all of Alexandria, Antioch, and Constantinople as Coptic Ethiopia. Yeah, that's fun. I've done this achievement. If you get the right start, it can be really, really fun. You've got initial wars against the Mamluks, which can be quite tricky if the Ottomans haven't dogpiled them. But if you time it right, it's less fun. I would almost say make the wrong choice when you're playing this nation and trying to go for this achievement. Don't dogpile the Mamluks with the Ottoman help, because it then becomes an easy steamroll. I would say if you're into this, wait until the Mamluks are strong, then attack them and try and bait them with defensiveness onto the mountains. That's way more fun and way more satisfying in my opinion. Protect the secret. As Yemen, prevent any European nation from owning a coffee producing province in the old world until 1700. I'm gonna go meh because it's somewhat interesting, I suppose. But I started it and I got bored quickly, so maybe it's just not for me. So I'll put it in meh for now. Let me know your thoughts down below. All right, Qing of China, or King. I've never known how to pronounce that with a Q. Is it Qing? Is it King? Is it Qing? It's not Qing. I know that doesn't sound right. Become Chinese emperor as Qing. It's on the same level as Manchurian Candidate, one lower really, because you can just do it. You can just do Manchurian Candidate and pick this up as well. So it's okay. It is fun. I just don't know why you wouldn't combine the two. Quiz Pro Quo. As Quiz have your capital in the Anjou province. This is meh because you start out as a New World nation. And if you're a New World nation whose aims of the achievement are in the New World, then you're fun. If you're not, then you're boring because you have to wait for the Europeans to get to you. And that sucks. Rags and riches. Have the highest income in the world whilst neither owning nor starting with a province higher than development of 10. I think this is fun. It's not just mindless conquest. You have to be mindful of how you conquer, if that makes sense. There's a whole section on the EU4 wiki about the different starting nations that you can choose for this. But I think as an achievement, it's more fun than this lot, and on par with these guys. It could become a bit of a grind though, so bear that in mind. But it is an achievement that you would load up the game to expressly get. Raja of the Rajput Reich, which is conquer all of Germany as Nagar. A little bit of grindy, but it's one of the OG achievements that I remember trying to go for, and I had a blast doing it the first time. I don't know if that's just because I was different back in the day. Maybe I was a lot more positive of a person. I don't know, but it was fun. And so it's not quite on the level of the grindy lot down here. I would even maybe pump it up one, but I'll keep it here for now. All right, redecorating. Starting as an Orthodox nation, consecrate Metropolitan in Roma. Again, you wouldn't express it. It's a similar thing to the Pasha. These two are very, very similar to the Pasha in Paris. Because it's just you own Rome, you consecrate it, bada bim, bada boom, and you've got your achievement. Again, you wouldn't really expressly start up a game of EU4 to do it, but you would for this, Rekindling the Flame. So you start as a Zoroastrian nation. I'm pretty sure I've already done this. Am I going insane? No, this is. Okay, so these two could be combined, which is why they're on the same level. My mind is going a little bit here. But yeah, you start as a Zoroastrian nation. It's a custom nation, so that's always fun. It's not too tricky, and yeah, it's decent. This one is going all the way up to the top. Now, we're almost done here, boys. This is good. So as at Kinulu, as Rise of the White Sheep, you have to, if I recall correctly, conquer and have own Tabriz and have Kargon not exist by 1478. Yeah, that's fun. Short, nice and little sweet thing. And it's not too tricky, to be honest. But that rush... I enjoy achievements where it's a race against time versus a race against your own ability, if that makes sense. Like, you can do this if you're not very good at EU4. It's the mad rush aspect of it that makes it fun and makes it in S tier. Ruina Imperi, I'm pretty sure that's just dismantle the Roman Empire. Not that big of a deal. Sailor Mon, as Pegu have at least 100,000 sailors. You just need to have 100,000 sailors in your pool. Once you're big enough, it's just a waiting game, really. Go full isolationist. This, don't even bother. Basically, as Japan, you need to pick all the isolation options, which you just wait and it's contingent on time. So really, no point. Saladin's Legacy. This is a really fun achievement just because His and Caver is a really tricky start. Once you get going, it can be a bit dull, but bit of flavor there. It's a mission tree. I say a mission tree, a custom mission tree. You've got like 3 missions, realistically. But the start carries it, and it's a nice color. And you've got the whole idea of Saladin, and it's not too far removed from EU4's history start time. So if you're interested in sort of historical roleplay, it makes perfect sense. Pretty sure this is a Shahansha achievement. This is an achievement that I got live over on Twitch. So if you haven't gone and followed us on Twitch, go and do that. You form Persia as Ardabil. I think this is renowned for being harder than it actually is. I think there's a bit of luck involved. But it's not too tricky. I would say it's a lot of fun, despite the fact that it's not too tricky. Again, you don't need to be. The achievement doesn't need to be hard to be fun. A clear aim forming Persia, and Persia is a really fun region to expand into. Yeah, I think that's all that has to be said about that. But Snape, I've never been able to pronounce that. Get the origins of power with 100% Republican tradition and owning a province in China as the Dutch Republic. It's just okay. It's nothing really to get out of bed for. You would get this achievement by happenstance of playing as the Dutch versus going out and getting it. Sleepers in Seattle, own 10 coffee producing provinces and have your capital in Salish. That does not interest me in the slightest. I would say it's just a random collection of words at this point, which feels like that's what I'm spouting. So let's go on to something that I actually care about, which is the Sons of Carthage achievement, which I think is one of the most fun achievements in EU4. That is not just because I'm half Tunisian, and so I have a penchant for it. You just need to recreate what Carthage had, basically. So roleplay elements of it. You've got a tricky start in the Iberians trying to take you out. Raiding is always fun. Conquering North Africa is always a nice little challenge. I like achievements, as you might have been able to gather from this point, that break down gameplay into different stages. So you sort of have stage 1 of fighting and conquering North Africa, stage 2 Iberia, stage 3 cleanup. So it's a nice little simple achievement that did take me a while to get, but it is a lot of fun, and I might even do it on stream again. Spaghetti Western, definitely one of the weirdest achievements. I've never attempted this, but from what I know, people have really enjoyed it. People have been asking me to do it a lot. I might do it. I like weird achievements, so that's definitely something I would put. I don't want to put it in actually fun, because all of these are achievements that I know are fun. But this could definitely easily go up into here, or even here if I have a really good time doing it. Emperor's New Clothes, so basically become Emperor's Spain. Yeah, it's not that hard. It's not that interesting, in my opinion. All right, Spanish Fly. Starting to awfully secure a personal union over an Iberian nation. It's weird, and I like weird, so I'll put it up here. Again, I've never tried it, so I'm not confident enough to put it into actually fun. But on premise alone, I would be tempted to put it into actually fun. I like the idea that you start as a weird nation, and you have to switch up your playstyle a little bit, but not dramatically enough for it to warrant being up in here. Spice Girls, having a female ruler, have active trading bonuses for cloves, spices, salt, and sugar. Too much random chance for me. Way too much random chance. And if you watched my Succession game with Levick and Red Hawk, you know how much I enjoy spices. So it's painful for me to put them this far down. Stern des Students, form Bavaria and starting as München and have your subject own Bremen own Werder. Self-contained, decent, a bit of fun, not too much to write home about. Stiff upper lip, as Lip own all of the British Isles. I feel like this achievement was made because of the name more for any sort of enjoyable purposes. Once you've got a foothold on the British Isles, conquering it is not tricky and therefore not that interesting. Sun Invasion, as Madias own and have cause on Tepecac, Mexico, and sort of that region. You can get it. If you're trying to race against time, I can see it being decent. But there's not enough there. Again, it's one of those achievements where it's play as this nation, conquer that, which in my opinion is always going to struggle to get up into here. Of course, I have just sort of said the whole student thing is up here, but that's because, again, it's more self-contained. And I'm okay with it being self-contained. When it's go across an entire ocean and conquer these provinces, you need something a bit more to keep me enticed. I don't know how to pronounce this. I'll be honest. Ostindskompagniete. As Denmark established trade company and have at least 10% team market share. It's not quite as bad as this Pasha stuff and this lot down here, but it's altogether not that interesting. But I will say that it's made me realize how hungry I am, because I'm looking at that achievement icon and I'm thinking, damn, I could be up for a bread roll right now. Aztec Invasion. I'm going to break my own rules here because I did say that sort of crossing an ocean and natives aren't interesting just because of the fun I've had playing as the Aztecs in the past. It's going to be a decent time. But if I'm trying to be objective, it is meh, because I know a lot of people find the Aztec... It's sort of a Marmite kind of campaign. You have a doom counter that goes up. In order to reform your religion, you have to have 5 vassals, and then they break away. Your country goes to hell for a little bit, and you sort of have to recover. So it is a little bit rinse and repeat. I quite enjoy that mechanic. I know a lot of people don't. So I'll put it in meh, just to try and be a bit more objective. Having said that, I don't care, so I'm going to put it in a decent time. Swahili Persuasion, as Kilwa convert all of the Moluccas and Indonesia. I haven't tried this, but that just doesn't sound that interesting to me. Yeah, it's not great. I won't try and sugarcoat that one. Sweden is not overpowered. Own and have cores on the entire Baltic coastline of Sweden. I have really enjoyed playing this achievement, so I'm going to put that up in actually fun. Again, self-contained. Sweden is not the most flavorful nation to play as. When I did this achievement, there wasn't as much flavor in the game, and so Sweden didn't stand out as being a nation that is quite bare bones. I would say that I think Tom shares this opinion as well, that Paradox is going to focus on the Scandinavian region in the next update, so maybe wait for that to play this achievement. As it stands right now, it is quite fun. Sweet Harmony, harmonize 7 religions and Confucian. That's just a grind. Harmonizing religions just is you click one button and you wait. Not too difficult, not too interesting. Switzerlake, that's going straight at the top. Switzerland is a nation that has some flavor. It's fun to play. 99 provinces, you could argue, is just conquer a bunch of provinces, but it's not too many for it to be boring. And there's a stipulation that it can't be a coastline. I limit myself to say I can't touch coastlines. That's including sieges and stuff. But that's just a little bit of extra flavor I add for myself. On its own, Switzerlake is one of the most fun achievements in EU4, and I highly recommend that you go and do it. Sworn Fealty, starting an Arabian Tribal Federation, unite Arabia and have maximum tribal allegiance. Yeah, I would say it's a decent time. Self-contained. The Arab starting nations aren't that flavorful. They were back when they were released. Oh man, when Credit Civilization first came out, everyone was going mental over these things. The government type itself is quite interesting. But it's not quite a decent time. I would say it's definitely low B tier, high C tier. Take that von Habsburgs. It's a decent time. You're starting as Hungary, a lot of flavor. Conquering Austria is not too tricky, but it's still interesting enough to keep me going. And there's not too many provinces that it becomes boring and becomes a slog. So a couple of wars, you finish that up, nice easy achievement, and it's a decent time. Tatarstan. As Kazan or Nogai own all Tatar culture group lands, which is quite a decent chunk of territory. I'm going to say it's actually fun, just because their hordes. Kazan is a great nation to start as. I don't think you might need to fight Muscovy. But even if you don't need to fight Muscovy, they're a big enough threat in terms of them attacking you that it's not just sort of a steamroll. But hordes are ridiculously fun, so that puts it up to being actually fun. Terra Mariana, that's an achievement, the most recent EU4 achievement I got. I had a great time with it. It's sort of high A tier. You start as Riga and you have to conquer the entirety of the Baltic region. There are a couple of different ways to go about it. It's not terribly tricky, but it's a lot of fun just because of the initial wars. How I did it is I got stack wiped immediately, and the entire Twitch chat was laughing at me and saying that I'd failed and telling me to restart. I went from being stack wiped and having 0 troops to winning that war against both the Livonians and Teutons at the same time. So there's a lot going on in those sorts of initial combats, and it's a lot of fun. Have a subject own all Silk provinces in the world. That's again, it happens because you get another achievement, not because of anything else. That's no Mon, has Pegu own at least 50 provinces that are not of the Mon culture. It's the same time as the Sailor Mon achievement. It's just the grind again for the same reason as the Sailor one, so I won't rehash it. The 52 Gars, as Garwal own and maintain 52 forts without going to debt. You guys know I hate forts, but I'm going to put it in a decent time just because you can form Nepal. That doesn't prevent the achievement, and again, I've already said everything there is to say about India. Manipur, the animal kingdom. So as Manipur unite the Bengal region and convert to animism, this is a difficult achievement. I want to put it in actually fun because it does represent a tricky time. everyone will declare war on you at the start. Ridiculously quickly as Manipur. I like the idea of staying animism. It forces you to stay animism, and converting everything to animism is, again, great roleplay. So I'll put it up in actually fun. A tier. Meh for the Bohemians. So that's just as Bohemia own Dublin. Like I said, one of the earlier achievements, and you can tell that because it doesn't have any sort of special criteria. It just, as one nation, owns something else. So it's not that interesting. The Buddhists strike back as Koto Kandi own all of India and convert it to Theravada Buddhism. Yeah, it's a decent time. Similar reasons to this one over here and the Cotton Candy one. It's a little bit better than Cotton Candy because it's not just own a bunch of provinces, you have to convert them as well. Difficult start. I've said all that needs to be said about that, but I still can't say it properly, apparently. Burgundian Conquest. I couldn't remember what it's called, so I had to look it up. As Burgundy own the Low Countries as region as core provinces and have France and Austria as your subjects. For the same reason that I've said about this one here, Burgundy is a really, really fun start, and so it's not too much of a stretch to fight both France and Austria to the point where you can make them your vassals. Not altogether that interesting, but again, Burgundy as a nation carries it very easily. This is, I believe, characterized as hard or very hard on the EU4 wiki. This is as a daimyo from Japan. I don't think this is very hard at all. It's fun as an achievement, self-contained. It's not terribly difficult or interesting. Again, I would say that you get this achievement by virtue of thinking, I want to play as a daimyo in Japan versus I want to get this achievement, which is not the case for Fazan down here. So this is control at least 90% of the trade power in Tunis, Katsina, Safi, and Timbuktu, the Fezan corridors. I'm going to put that up in a decent time. If not, actually fun. So high A, high B, low A. Fazan is a tricky-ish start. Once you get over the initial Tunis stuff, it's not too hard. But owning at least 90% of the trade power, it's not purely about conquest, and that's why it's actually fun and sort of high B, low A instead of being sort of just solidly in B. The first Tongu Empire. As Tongu unite the Burman culture group as 1500. It's timed. It's a mad rush. It's tricky. It's fun. Definitely, I would say it's a good benchmark for how good you are at EU4 to test your abilities, whether you can get this achievement or come close to getting this achievement. Yeah, I think that's how I would measure out my own skill personally, and sort of like over time how much better you get is how close you get to getting the achievement. I want to put Grand Armada down here. 500 heavy ships and no loans. What's the point? Maybe, yeah, again, you're not loading it up to play this one, so it's very little point. Great Khan starts as Mongolia, or the Great Horde, and basically own what was Mongolia. I'm going to chuck that up here. Is actually fun. High A, low S tier. Mongolia is a really fun nation to start as. Great Horde I've already talked about in terms of Gold Rush. Yeah, and owning Mongolia is not too much of a stretch that it's boring. Those provinces can be quite easily conquered without too much aggressive expansion if you cycle the aggressive expansion in terms of expanding to different culture groups and religious groups. So it doesn't get boring, and you're a horde, so that's always a bonus. The iron price, restore the Danelaw region to Danish rule, make it Danish. Yeah, that's probably up here. It's one of the only reasons to play as Denmark. It's not that hard of an achievement, and it's quite fun, quite specific aim, and you can get it done quite quickly. And then you just sit back and slowly culture convert. It's not too dissimilar to this Basque one, but you can get it going a bit quicker. So it's sort of, I might even put the Basque one up here. Yeah, okay, I'm moving Navarra up one. The League of Mayapan, starting in Swastik for Maya. All right, this is what I mean about starting the New World, ending the New World. You don't have to wait for any Europeans. You don't have to wait around for institutions. You can just get it done, and it's fun. Mexico is a region that is fun up until you have to wait for the Europeans, at which point it becomes fun again. So it's fun initially, then boring, then fun. This cuts out the boring part, so it's just fun. The Levant turnabout, as the Mamluks have 100 army professionalism and annex the Ottomans. It's not that difficult to defeat the Ottomans as the Mamluks. The 100 army traditions is just going to take a while, and therefore not that interesting. The Navigator, as Portugal gets owned provinces in Africa, India, and Indonesia before 1500. I'm going to put that up here in sort of mid A tier, because it's not just about conquest. How do I describe this? It's different to the other mad rushes of by 1500 because of how different it plays out with the colonialism game. So it's a different way to play the game, if that makes sense. And so it's going to be a nice change of pace. If you find yourself becoming bored with EU4, this is the achievement that will sort of reignite a little bit of passion back in you, I think. The Ostenders, as Austria, have the district and military administration investments in the West Bengal area. It's high D, to be fair, because you do have a specific aim, but personally, I've not tried it. I just don't see it as being too much of an interest to me. Austria is too big of a starting nation for it to be a challenge at the start to then look for another challenge. You start the game, you're always looking towards that achievement. There's nothing for you to deal with initially, which is a bit meh. In the same vein, have three units at the same time as Austria. Really not hard at all. It's not a grind as such, so maybe high D tier, low C, but it's not difficult. You got through Austrian missions, you'll get that achievement quite easily. The Pheasant Strut. As Gorka, form Nepal and defeat Prussia with at least 100,000 Prussian casualties in a war. This is only meh because of that last part. Don't say that. That's stupid, Leif. As Gorka, form Nepal and defeat Prussia. It's okay. It's nothing really shouts out about it to me. I've played as Nepal before. I've never once decided then to go for the Pheasant Strut achievement because it's sort of crossing a world to fight one singular war, which I can see the appeal for some people, in which case they'd probably put it in either A or B tier. For me, it's just C tier, which is not the case for Prince of Egypt. As starting as Florence, form Egypt, that is going to go high A tier. It's a weird way to play the game. As a normal Florence game, you wouldn't just rush for Egypt. I would say try and do it by a certain point, but again, I like achievements. I have a soft spot for achievements that make you play the game in a different way, make you switch out your culture, your religion, and point you in a direction, just to sort of tell you to do that thing. So yeah, I think it's decent. This bastard of an achievement. I'm going to put it up as just go play it, because it is one of the most satisfying achievements once you complete it. If you can get past the initial start of Granada, it's so much fun to form Andalusia and do the whole Reconquista side of things. If you can't, this achievement is hell. So I'm going to put it in S tier because I'm a slight masochist, so I'm going to put it up there. And that's the same reason I'm going to find this one early, and I'm going to put it up in A tier. This is the This Is Fine achievement, where you have to have at least 10 global unrest and be winning in a coalition war which was targeted against you. A lot of people would find this awful. I, as you know from watching the channel, am a masochist, and so that sounds like a lot of fun. I haven't got this achievement yet. But just the sheer grind of it, and the sheer, like, you have to put your nation in such a horrible state. I like the idea that an achievement forces you to play non-optimally to get the achievement. That's what I like. Something a bit interesting and something a bit different. The Rising Sun. Own and have cause in all of Japan as a European nation. One of the earlier achievements, and again, not that interesting. These banners need a saga. Starting as a Georgian nation, have 100 regiments of banners raised at the same time. Just because Georgian nations are interesting, I'll put it in a decent time. But it is low B tier, because again, it's just be this nation, be big, have X amount of troops, which I don't think is too inspired, personally. But we're coming to the tail end of it now, boys. Starting in Morocco, conquer the Niger and Sahel regions. Morocco is a fun nation to play as, so this would be a decent time. It's not too inspired of an achievement, but by virtue of Morocco having a bit of flavor and having like things like the Black Guard as a mission is quite fun. I think this is the sun never sets in the Indian Empire, where you have to own Britain and a few other London, sorry, and a few other provinces. This is a bit of a grind. Once you unite India, you're gonna get the achievement. It's just a case of slowly getting there, which is not great. All right, the third way achievement. Start an Abadi nation and eliminate all rival schools of Islam. It's a decent time purely because the Abadi start is quite fun. After a while, it's going to become a bit boring. But if you can maintain, again, the roleplay aspect of it, go down religious ideas, go down that sort of idea group, maybe go to a feudal theocracy if you can, then it would become more enjoyable, in my opinion. I think a lot of these achievements, it's sort of how you mentally approach them. If you can get into the roleplay side of things, then I think they're a lot more fun. And this is really annoying me, the fact there are two of these. The Uncommonwealth achievement. As Lithuania become the Commonwealth. Lithuania has a custom mission tree. Weirdly enough, I don't think Lithuania is a nation that you would typically play. I know it sounds strange, but they are large enough that they're not too much of a challenge, but they always get swallowed by Poland, so they're not too much in your psyche to go and play. So I think, again, it's an achievement that plays you to play as a lesser played nation that has some custom missions and a clear aim. The White Elephant, as Ayutthaya, own all of Indochina and Burma as core provinces. I'm going to put it in high B, low A tier. It's a decent time. It's a fun achievement. Ayutthaya is a fun nation. It's not tricky. It's one of those things. You come home from a long day at work and you can just bash out this achievement for fun. It's not too tricky. It's quite relaxing in my opinion. This is Persia. I'm going to put this up in actually fun. I had a good time streaming this. You can go straight from Shahanshah into This is Persia. Eventually it becomes to the point where you know you're going to get the achievement, at which point it does become a bit of a grind. But up until that point, because it's the Ottomans that you're typically fighting, especially if you start as, like I said, Ardabil, and you start as a smaller nation, the Ottomans typically have the potential to become ridiculously powerful. So there is always that threat. When I was streaming it, I was constantly being attacked by the Ottomans. I think we had 4 or 5 wars that looked like I was going to lose every single one of them. And that just made it so much more fun to play. I'm just going to put that there. Don't need to talk about it. Same thing for Revolution was crushed because you have to wait for time constraints. If I'm putting them down here, I might not even explain them just because they're that dull, man. Tiger of Mysore. Starting to Mysore conquered the Deccan and Coromandel regions. It's another one. It's very, very similar to the other Indian conquest ones. And so I'll put that where I've put them, which is in B tier just because India is an interesting place to conquer, I suppose. Yeah, Mysore, there's not really much to say about that I haven't already said, to be honest. I'll be honest, I have absolutely no idea what this achievement is, and I can't find it. I've been scrolling through for about 10 minutes now trying to find it, and I don't know why I can't find it. So, why not? Yeah, no, brilliant, Leif. You're going to decide this one. Comment now. Traditional player, more than 90% naval and army tradition. That is just the dullest thing I've ever read. That's horrible. Same thing with Trophy Hunter. It's not that interesting. So with Trophy Hunter, it's just capture an enemy flagship. I don't know why that's medium in difficulty, to be honest. It just happens. True Heir of Timur. I'm going to put a decent time. Again, similar to the Tongu Empire one, it's a good benchmark for how good you are at EU4. It is a ridiculously difficult achievement. Like, just stupidly difficult. I might play that on stream at some point, but it's very, very hard. And credit to the people who actually have done it. Because it's not an easy one. We'll call this and the Tongu one the benchmark achievements. I like that. Trustworthy, have 5 allies with 100 trust towards you each. That's, no, again, it's unenjoyable. Jandar, Turkish Delight. Start as Jandar and own 20 sugar provinces between you and your subjects. Weirdly enough, the wiki recommends you flee to New World. I don't think so. I think you can definitely stick it out and defeat the Ottomans. I'm going to go sort of low B because 20 producing provinces is a bit redundant, sorry. It's a bit sort of uninspired. Ship durability as Korea. That's this one. I think it turtles all the way up or something. Turtles all the way down, my bad. As Korea get 135% ship durability. In and of itself, not that interesting. It's a decent time just because it's Korea. It is worth loading up, just getting this achievement, just because Korea is an interesting nation. That's why it's fun. Another one of the new ones, Ultimate Military. As Songhai have Prussia and Nepal as marches. I can see how people might enjoy that. They're too far apart for me to find that fun. It's not like you could just snipe them. It's you have to conquer your region first, then conquer that region, and conquer that region just for the achievement versus it being like an ongoing thing. For example, as Manipur conquering one region and converting at the same time, or Basque, or the Basque Invasion thing, the Navarra one, you conquer the Iberia whilst also culture converting at the same time. Venetian Sea, as Venice, have 75% trade share in both Alexandria and Constantinople nodes, owning less than 10 cities. It's that last part that makes this fun. Again, limiting yourself to that in that sort of way whilst trying to achieve your aims is going to be fun for the same reasons as I've mentioned with other achievements. I'm just going to put We Bled for this here. We Bled for this, you just have to 1 million casualties on both sides. It's a grind. There's no point to it. Oh my god, I found it. Total control. Own 100 or more provinces with no local autonomy or unrest. All of that just for a don't bother one. It's so stupid. Pretty sure this next one is Victorian 3. I'm surprised at the amount of achievements that I know just by looking at their icons. So as Basoga, Buganda, or Karagwe reach, oh god, it's another one of those Poland, or like Poland can into space ones. Basically, as one of those 3 nations, have max tech. Really dull, guys. Paradox, that's not an interesting achievement. Voltaire's Nightmare, have at least 100 countries in the HRE. I can see how that would be interesting. Some sort of high C, low B. If you start as Austria, it's kind of not that difficult. But I can see you would keep your interest. You got a clear aim. You can see a number tick closer to 100. I can understand it. It's just not for me. Where are the penguins? As a Malagasy country, unite Madagascar and hold all of the most southern provinces in the world. That's not too bad. I feel like it's more of a chill achievement. I can definitely say that was one of the weaker ones in B. I wouldn't be upset if someone wanted to put this in C tier, because owning all the southernmost provinces, it's a slight caveat to just conquer, but it is at its core just conquer. Dahomey, let's put you all the way up here. So as Dahomey, you have to force all non-fetishist nations out of Niger and Sahel by 1500. So it's mad rush, mad conquest in sub-Saharan Africa and West Africa, which is a really fun region to run riot in. It's a tricky start, and it's a lovely little color with a lesser known and lesser played nation. So definitely all of the ingredients for an actually fun achievement. Why is the ROM gone? As Asturias, establish an order and run. I'm going to put this in high B, low A, just because Asturias, again, is a nation that not many people are going to play. You got a clear aim. It's going to be tricky if the Ottomans are powerful, though, and that would turn it into a bit of a slog, because you just started chipping your way to them. Wonderful. That's not just me expressing myself. That is the next achievement that we're going to be looking at, which is own 8 different monuments on tier 3. It's on the cusp of, it's low E. It's less enjoyable than most of the E tier. You just have to own monuments and then have the cash to upgrade them, and then just wait for them to be upgraded. Nothing really special about that. It's just a little bit more interesting than F tier. Yarhar, A Pirate's Life for Me. Choose to play as New Providence and conquer all of the Caribbean. Pirates are so much fun to play as. Choosing to play... The only reason that this isn't in S tier is because of the time it takes to get to play New Providence. You spend the early game getting to the new world to try and play as a different nation than the nation you're starting as, which isn't fun. But once you start playing as New Providence, you start playing as a pirate, things get a lot better. So it's definitely worth doing despite the initial slog, but that's why it's not going to be going in S. And the final one, my god, ladies and gentlemen, with a little help, is the final achievement. As Ragusa, lead a trade league of 5 nations and guarantee the Ottomans' independence. I'm going to put that in low A tier because Ragusa is an interesting starting nation. There are some caveats that aren't just conquer everything. And I've played Ragusa and it's been fun. How many achievements is that? That's like 120, 130 achievements I've just ranked in order. Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, that's it. The complete guide to the most fun achievements in EU4, according to myself, the foremost and only authority in EU4, as you can tell by me using the same joke in the beginning and referring to my EU4 jumper. I would say any achievements in this top lot, just go and play as your next campaign. You'll have a lot of fun and you'll thank me. But if you do have a different opinion, I'll leave a link to the tier list maker in the description down below, and also probably a pinned comment so you can go and try it out for yourself. I'd love to see what you think of my list in the comments down below. Otherwise, definitely a different kind of video for me. So if you enjoyed it, do be sure to like the video and subscribe to let me know, and it also helps us out a lot. Otherwise, boys, I will see you all next time.
Shout out to our Patreons: Shadow Singer, Jado52, Kargon, Flyerton, Henriki, Redguard76, and Xiaomi. Your support means a lot, guys.